Welcome to Forever Exiled. I'm Justin AK Tags.
I'm Tyler, Wrecker of Days.
This is episode 237 of Forever Exiled, and we are super pumped this week to be joined by Rory from GGG. Rory, thanks for joining with us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to be here.
Yeah, very excited. Just a quick note, patrons, anyone who signed up for our Patreon, we'll shout you out next week because we're recording this early just to make it work with Rory's schedule. So there you go. Yeah, it's cool. It's really fun to have you. We saw you in Seattle, and now we're getting a chance to actually sit down and chat with you.
All right. Yeah.
It's cool.
No, that was cool. I mean, PAX was pretty fun. Met a lot of people. And you guys get a chance to play PoE too, I'm guessing?
Oh, no, we didn't stand in that line. That line was bananas. No. I did play it at ExileCon, the first one, but it's quite a bit different.
That's a long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
A very different game. Yeah, no, we actually just came to actually meet some of the staff, and we were fortunate that you were there, and you're very willing to talk. So that was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the game's just changed. We've seen so much of the gameplay already that it was more of a staff interaction event for us. It takes about 3 hours for us to drive down. We're in Canada near Vancouver, so
right.
We just drove down the few hours to Seattle to do it because when's the next time we're going to do it?
Yeah,
so it's nice to see you.
For those who don't know, can you just maybe introduce yourself, what your role is at GGG, what you do there?
Sure. My official title is lead game designer, and I've just been working on Path of Exile 2 for years now, but I've been with the company for almost 12 years now. I think I'm at 11 years, so a long time. And when I started, there were like 15 people in a tiny office in the middle of nowhere, and it's changed a lot over that time. So I started in QA, and now I'm doing lead design on basically all the skill stuff is really the sort of my passion. And I've probably been the one most responsible for the most skills in the game for a long time. So it's always been, that's the focus. And there's not a lot of skills that I wasn't like at least in the room when we came up with the designs for them and things like that.
Wow, that's cool. So you started in QA as well then?
Yes.
Because there's a number of you guys, like Mark, I think, started there as well, right?
Yeah. Mark was my junior when I, like not long after I started, but now, good number of QA people now in senior roles, just over.
That's cool.
Out. Yeah.
That's good though.
I mean, it's always
the
most extreme Path of Exile fans just want to be in QA, and
right.
many of them find their way up. Yeah.
Did you start off wanting to like just work in video games? Was PoE, because that's right from the beginning. So PoE didn't really have a reputation at the time, I'm assuming. So were you excited about the project, or what got you into GGG?
I never heard about it at all before. I mean, when I started, like Act 2 was barely functional, and like it was before even beta. It was like early alpha stuff. So I'd never heard of it, and I just apply. I just come back from Japan after 6 months over there, and I was just like looking for any job I can get. I'm like, I want to do game design. I mean, I'd studied to be a game designer. That was always my goal. I'm like, I'll just get the first one that I can get my hands on, and it happened to be this one. It was some other random mobile game company. Then I'm like, this other mobile game company sounds more official than this grinding gear games that are in some small place in the middle of nowhere, but I'll give it a go. And like, that mobile game company didn't last, thankfully. So I'm like, oh, that's good. I made the right choice. So
you're from New Zealand then originally, or?
Yeah, I'm from New Zealand. Moved around a bit, but ended up in Auckland. And it just happened to be that I was close by Auckland. So I'm like, I'll just look for games in Auckland, and this is one of the two at the time.
Wow, that's awesome how it worked out for you. When you were saying you were moving around, and then you also referenced Japan, when you're bumping around, is that just moving around your country, or did you go overseas more than Japan? Because Japan's, that's a big jump over a big pond.
Oh, mostly just around parts of New Zealand. But my wife at the time, girlfriend had a job in Japan, so I went over there, ended up being like there for 6 months, and I mostly just worked on games to be on a CV for getting a job in games. And came back and put it to use immediately.
That's
good
awesome.
For you. That's awesome.
You were talking about PAX, like we mentioned, we saw you at PAX, and you guys were doing all these different things. What I'm just kind of curious, like we talked to Octavian and a couple other people too, just about the craziness of that schedule. What was that sort of like, did you go through a bunch of the places? Like, I think it was PAX, and then you were out east at one point, you were in Europe. Like, did you go through all those? Yeah.
So I was there at Gamescom in Germany. That was the real intense part of it. That was the 12-hour days for the whole conference stuff. but it was also like heaps of time scheduled to like relax afterwards. So it was actually felt a lot like a holiday, and we met a bunch of Path of Exile people just both at the conference and beforehand as well. And then over to PAX afterwards in Seattle, and that was much more chill by comparison. But yeah, it was also just the main stress of the whole thing was just watching people play the game. People who are not Path of Exile players. The difference between like ExileCon, where all these people are come here to play the game, and all these people are just like, oh no, you didn't pick up the staff at the start. You're punching your way up the beach. That's right. Like the most stressful thing of the whole experience, really. Yeah.
When you go to those types of events, obviously there's all the stuff that you've worked on as well, but how much valuable feedback do you get from people that are actually showing up live?
Watching people play is not something that we like really do. Like there is some like user testing stuff going on, but actually just wandering around and watching people play and getting to like point them in the right direction now and then is like just a first time experience actually at the conference. So yeah. Even
is that like good feedback for you guys? Like, does that make you go, oh, do we need to reconsider some things or think about it? Or is it just more of a guiding hand and just seeing how they get on?
It's definitely there's way more tutorials and like things in place to be like, hey, you've walked too far away from like the starting gem or the starting weapon, or like you haven't equipped this thing. There's stuff that we're just like assuming people will figure out. It's like, no, it doesn't hurt to just have a tutorial there to just remind you to do the things that we
pick up a weapon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Cool.
Okay, so we want to get a little bit into just some quick personal questions, because I have to ask this one. People know that Tyler and I, we're lawn guys. We like our lawns. Do you have a lawn? Do you have like grass?
I'm not very proud of it at the moment. It's a little bit overgrown, and I'm trying to like kill it off and put some new grass in. So there's a plan.
That's good. Yeah. I like that.
You know your lawn exists, so that's better than some other people we've had on the show. So good for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We say we're lawn fans. I don't know if our lawn has ever looked worse than when we started this podcast. Like, we're on episode 237, right? Yeah. 237. And they used to look good when we both moved into our respective places. And we've slowly started becoming more invested in our properties. And our properties have slowly but surely, steadily looked worse and worse and worse. Our lawns are very good examples of those. So good for you.
Raccoons are mine.
Oh, sure,
raccoons
are mine. Whatever. But anyway, good for you. Good for you. Long-term plan, short-term plan. When's it going to look good? If it's going to look good.
Well, I've been working on this mobile game, and that's basically all of my free time is going that thing there and all my energy. So like, at some point I'll get that out and make my millions, and then I'll just be able to, afford a new lawnmower upgrade and replace the grass.
Sure.
Just something automatic. It does it all for you.
Yeah.
Can I ask you what the mobile game is? Like, is this just something you're doing for fun?
So ages ago, I just started working on a tabletop role-playing game, like a card-based thing, and was playing regular games of it with friends and developing it as they went. And that was my passion for like 7 years. But after I had a kid, the time for getting a group of friends together, also in COVID, it was a bit trickier to like sit down and play a card game. So after that, I was like switched over to just making PC games by myself. And I started with a complex platforming game, which I will get back to any day now. And then I was like, I have an idea for a quick mobile game that I can just like get out and make money, and then I'll have the stuff to pay people to make my other game. Just work on 2 games at once, maybe 3 games. It'll be fine.
Right? Are you doing that all on your own?
Yeah. At the moment I am. Yeah.
Oh wow, cool.
I mean, trying to create something that's cool enough that other people will want to get involved, but also making Path of Exile 2 at the same time. So there's only so much bandwidth there.
Yeah.
Totally.
Sure. Yeah, but my skills as a game designer were like just the bare understandings of different aspects of how games work. So never actually studied programming properly or 3D modeling properly. A little bit in university, but nothing real. So recently I've just been like, I'll just learn C# and I'll learn Blender and all of that stuff. And yeah, it's been good.
Wow, cool.
That's cool.
And it's very handy also having like 100 experts that I go and talk to every day.
Yeah, right.
Why does my animation look bad? And like, what rigging tools are you using? And like, I just made a rig, and they're like, no, that's not right. That's not.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I look forward to it. I hope you get to finish it, because those are really fun things to work on for so long, and it's such a cool feeling when you actually, you like hit that button, and all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, I can read a book now. Like, it's done. Like, and then you're excited for a reaction and what happened. Yeah, I don't know. So I'm looking forward to it. Good for you. Do you have you were mentioning having a kid and life changing. Do you have any pets to go along with that?
Yep, I've got a cat who's getting on in the years, but she's still very active. She woke me up at 4 a.m. this morning wanting food, and I woke up and pointed out there was food in her bowl, but yeah, my daughter's 6 now, so schools makes everything more interesting as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're both family guys as well, so we know what you're
Yep.
we know the joys and
the time.
Not so joy. Yeah. All of the above.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
I'm trying to teach her 3D modeling so she can, get a bit. I don't think
Help you out.
Aimed with 6-year-olds, but she'll get there. We'll get there.
That's awesome.
It's amazing how often when you look back as a parent, you realize they could have caught on to something so much earlier than before. There's so many little things about how when I'm parenting, I'm like, man, they're catching on so quick. And then I realized, like, holy crap, I could have taught this like 3 years ago, because my kids are 9 and 11 currently.
Oh, yeah.
And so never too old to start that modeling tutorial. No, what?
Never too young.
Yeah, that one. Mm-hmm. That's my final answer. Do you have a chance to read any books whenever you're tired of working on the mobile game or your daughter's finally in bed?
Not recently, no. It's kind of been a work on my game until late, and then play games a little bit if I have energy, and then try and meditate so I can actually get some sleep afterwards. Yeah. Well, I used to read a lot of fantasy stuff when I was young, and I think my nostalgia for reading has been when I go back and pick up a book, I was like, these books aren't as good as I remember them being.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I do just like picking up a Brandon Sanderson book now and then, just as effective light reading, something fun for a bit. But I need to get back into the deep fantasy stuff. I want to do some writing for my own game as well. I've barely done any writing on Path of Exile outside of sneaking some flavor text or some memes here and there. Cool. So I do want to get back into writing, and that means getting back into reading. But any recommendations you have for something that's Brandon Sanderson-esque, something light, something not too heavy for me?
Right. Hey, sorry, I wasn't facing the mic. Can you read this, or is this backwards?
I can see it. Final Empire.
Oh, see, I hate this. It's backwards for me. I can't think. Anyway, I'm a huge fan of the genre as well. I've never touched Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, really?
You can recommend him? You've really enjoyed him? I know he's phenomenal, and now he's his Kickstarters earned $1 billion per sentence. But
the thing I like about his works is that it's very game designery, where he's gotten fantasy mechanics that here are the rules of how it works, and now here's some conflicts that follow those rules. Here's how magic works, and any twist is hey, this was hinted at in the way that magic works, or the rules of it, or something like that. So you can get in the mindset of oh yeah, he's using this ability now and this thing here which interacts that certain way. I guess maybe I like reading those books because they're like playing a game. Am I a one-trick pony?
Just like games.
With all the books that I read, I have a very difficult time breaking into something new, because I just want to reread a previous series that I had. Like you were saying, it's so different 10 years, 20 years later. It's almost a completely different story, except for Lord of the Rings. It's tough to forget Lord of the Rings, how dry it is to get through and how fantastic it is at the end. But yeah, I could talk to you about books all day, but I won't. But it's fantastic. You were saying you also play video games, of course, right? It's what you're big into. What other games outside of PoE, if there's any games outside of PoE, what kind of stuff interests you?
Well, I played a lot of Warframe when my daughter was first born. That was a good thing to just going to grind away while rocking this kid to sleep. I could manage it just barely. And after that, I really got into Dead Cells. Like, Dead Cells has kind of inspired me to make a platformer in the first place. Like, my wife's favorite game is Overcooked, and my favorite game is Dead Cells. So, like, the platformer game I was making is just like meshing those two together. And Dead Cells got me into more like roguelike hardcore games. Supergiant Games is kind of the studio that I want to like emulate one day. And like Hades is, of course, they're like crown jewel. So that's sort of like roguelike. I mean, yeah, Hades is also just a good ARPG on top of the roguelike stuff. So fits well with like, a lot of like recent work stuff is just, well, we're doing this thing. It's kind of like one of those abilities in Hades, just like here's the important reference point. And I also just played a lot of Elden Ring, like as in multiple characters through the campaign. It started off as like liking the difficulty, but now I've done it enough times that I just enjoy doing something that I'm like, this used to be hard, but now I'm good at it. I need to win. It's been
right. And you get frustrated if you get hit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. What are some of the more challenging builds you've done in Elden Ring? We both kicked the crap out of Elden Ring too. He's when I say kick the crap out of, I just mean spend a lot of time with. He does it well. Wait, I am pointing to Justin, right?
You're doing it right.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. He does it well. I do it poorly, but we still enjoy it.
I mean, I can't seem to play a spellcaster build. I like the melee stuff, but getting into the thick of it. At the moment, for the DLC, I just leveled up an arcane. No, not an arcane. A strength like giant crusher, the slowest weapon I could find for the build.
It's massive.
Yeah. Now I'm trying out like arcane shenanigans. Just trying out like things I can get away with weird stat combinations and builds. But yeah, but it always ends up just being melee at the end of the day.
That's awesome.
That's
outside
cool.
of like games and kids, and I feel like you've kind of filled it all in, but is there anything else that you look forward to after you're off work, or is that pretty much it? Like, all right, work's done, I'm going to go do more work and hang out with the kids?
I think, yeah, just making more games. I like to play tabletop RPGs, just haven't found time recently. So been looking into starting some more games of like non-D&D, like interesting rule set things like Wild Sea, and yeah, I'm planning a Wild Sea game at the moment.
Like in-person board game style, or like what?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, Wild Sea, if you're not familiar, is about riding giant chainsaw-mounted ships over a sea made of trees with all sorts of weird stuff going on. So it's got that weird appeal to it that I love.
Is it like a longer style game that you can play multiple times, or is it an
it's
ongoing
like Dungeons
game?
and Dragons, where it's sit down at a table over multiple sessions, and I'll be running the games. I'll be coming out with a sort of story. But
you have a group of friends that's good for that, like that you consistently can show up and.
It kind of my usual group fell away over time, so I'm trying to form a new group of people that are more likely to have time. But yeah, that's tricky.
Yeah, it definitely gets harder.
Yeah,
we wish we could had the guts to make new friends too, because our friends suck. Like, they don't like the same stuff. We get together and we just stare at each other because we all like different games.
Yeah. No, it's cool having a workplace of 100 plus nerds all around me to just be like, oh, I was just talking about some build from some RPG I was looking at, and they're like, oh, I just bought the rule set for that game. Let's play. Do you want to play? I'm like, yes.
Oh, that's rad. That's cool.
Yeah, but the card game that I worked on for ages was like effectively Dungeons and Dragons, except played with cards. Never got to the point of it being like publishable or finished. It's more like now I've got a rule set that I can make a turn-based RPG just using this tabletop RPG rule set one day if I want to.
Did you actually play the one that you were working on?
Yeah. We basically had like weekly sessions for quite a while. Had a few campaigns in it, which is necessary because I was like, I'm just going to build cards, design cards as people are about to level up, or like design durabilities for the next fight. Like, yeah, and then it goes into the pool of like, now this is part of the set of monster cards and stuff.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
That's really cool.
But very slow going.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, life is busy, eh? I mean, you got your job, got Path of Exile too. Mm-hmm. Who knows how much that takes out outside of work, and then, family, of course, and then your hobbies. So yeah, but you mentioned writing as well, and writing I mean, I don't know if that was a hope or a possibility of writing within the game that you're working on as well, but what kind of writing were you referencing? Like you're doing your own little book as well? Or big book, little book?
No, not really. Just wanting to do like nice video game writing. My wife is an author, so she's written her book, so she gives me the writing advice.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So that's very handy. And she'll end up doing the writing. I want to do the writing, but maybe she'll just be like, a better one. I'm like, oh yeah, that is better.
That's right.
You give me the idea.
You could always ask her for advice and then not listen.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds
I don't know if that's good for your marriage, but that would be fantastic. Are you allowed to plug some of her stuff? Like what has she written?
She wrote a young adult novel called A Dash of Belladonna, which is like alchemy, like young girl learning alchemy in New Zealand. The standard New Zealand story.
What was it called? Sorry, I couldn't get the last word. I'm writing it down.
A Dash of Belladonna. Belladonna is a kind of poisonous plant.
That's really neat. Yeah, I'll check that out. That's really neat.
Yeah, so she's been writing the sequel for ages. She will probably look back at the first book and be like, I can do so much better than this though.
That's everybody, isn't it? Like you asked Stephen King the same thing. Even Camille, when we were talking to him about his music, we talked to him about some of the earlier music that he wrote for GGG, and he's like, I don't want to talk about it.
I could say the same about some skill designs that I've done, except they're still in the game and still playable. So that's
right on. Well, that's cool. That's neat. Maybe we'll start seeing your name on the credits for game writing as well, right? Maybe. Get two of you in there.
I mean, I don't think I've got time for Path of Exile writing, I'm afraid. Also, the writers are definitely more professional than I am.
Do you know like the whole lore behind Path of Exile? Like, are you? I mean, I don't know how people keep up with it, but
by sheer proximity, I've picked up almost all of it. Occasionally, there'll be like pointing out this particular flavor text here that contradicts something that I was about to put in, or something like that. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Before GGG, you said you were in Japan and stuff, but what type of, were you doing certain types of work or anything before you got into that?
I'd planned to go over and get a job there, but my wife was situated in a small rural town a long way from anywhere, and there were about 8 English-speaking people in the whole area. So we basically I didn't try very hard, because I was also trying very hard to like get game jobs overseas and things like that at the time. But yeah, other than that, it was mostly just enjoying being in Japan.
For sure.
How long were you in Japan for?
6 months all up.
What was the work you were doing before you went to Japan? Like, I assume you were back in New Zealand before then?
Yeah, it was just like after university, I worked at a cafe for about a year, and after that, straight over to Japan. So yeah, not really
cool.
Tried getting some jobs out of university and failed, so ended up working making coffees instead.
What was the background in university, like when you were there?
The course that I was doing is like a digital media design, so that included like some basic game dev coding stuff and 3D modeling and photography and all sorts of like anything digital, which, I mean, the majority of the game dev work was learning how to make games in Flash, which is a skill that is not so in demand these days. So
right.
Basically all my actual education from university is wasted. But I did play a lot of World of Warcraft in university, and I think being like a guild leader helped with like getting the job here, maybe. So yeah, I've led raids. It's fine.
It's good enough credentials. It's fine.
Making games, leading raids. It's about the same thing, really.
Man, so sometimes in our podcast, when GGG has a post, like an announcement saying, hey, come work for us, and then it has a list of credentials. Mm-hmm. I always laugh at those credentials, because I'm like, not laugh at them because of course they're needed, but like that's not me, right? Like I couldn't meet one of those, except for maybe the time played for Path of Exile. I have no hope. So I would love for one of those posts to come out with that guild leader. Hey, if you let a
previous
guild
raid
in
experience.
this, that's right. Oh man, imagine what the community would do. They would just spooch their pants if there was one where it was just that. Tiny bit of leadership role and Path of Exile experience. Come on down.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Maybe, yeah, sure.
It's changed over time.
I mean, it's very hard to like hire specifically for game design. Like, that's the thing of like, it doesn't really matter what you did before. It matters whether you can make work with people like in person and stuff, and how are you supposed to measure that stuff? So
Sure.
that's why so many of our game designers just come up through other roles in the company, because it's like, well, the only way to know for sure is to see someone actually do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Can you speak to humans? Are you fine?
Yeah.
Cool.
And a programmer believes one thing and an artist believes the polar opposite. Are you able to find a place where you can meet in the middle?
Right.
Are there any, I don't know, hobbies or passions you had prior to, this being employed at GGG, I guess, that you can no longer do, that you have time for, or that you no longer have time for?
Outside of just reading, then not really. I mean, yeah, games have always been like 95% of everything I've been thinking about and doing. I wasn't really allowed to play video games much as a kid, so having my whole life focused, well, reading, that was a big part of why I was reading, is because I can't play games, so I'm just going to hide in my room and read, but also just like sneaking down in the middle of the night to play World of Warcraft. Just takes time out of your schedule, but yeah, I mean, the other thing is that I love Lego, and which is very handy having a kid, but like, I've got basically slowly taking over the main bookshelf at our house, replacing it with like Lego models and stuff. The books being piled up in the corner more and more. But
So how has how do I say this? Lego's awesome.
mm-hmm.
Lego's now insanely expensive. Well, where we are, it is anyway. Like, I feel like I need to have a job just to, buy Lego every now and then. But you also have a 6-year-old.
Yep.
Do you let your sets be mixed and matched?
Oh, yeah.
Can you buy a Minecraft set, a Star Wars set, and you push them all in the same bin? Or are there certain sets she's not allowed to touch because they're all nice on the shelf?
I mean,
sorry, I'm saying she. I don't remember if I got that subconsciously from what you said.
Yeah,
okay,
I have a daughter, yes. She has said that she wants to have as much Lego as I have, and so like she has her own sets, but I will also find like her characters all throughout my city sets
awesome.
and things like that, and all sorts of weird things going on. That's cool. Occasionally a friend will come around and be like, I know, while Rory's away, I'll be funny and like make the models do funny things, and I just assume that my daughter did it because that's what usually happens anyway.
Oh, right. That's funny.
Awesome.
Have you seen the Lego movie?
Yes, of course.
One of the best parenting movies I could have ever watched.
Yeah.
That ending punched me in the face. Well, good for you. You're a good parent if you can mix and match your Lego with your family.
Yeah, let them actually play with Legos.
That's kind of the threshold right there. You're not where you want to be if Lego's more important, but you're getting there. Otherwise, you're set. So good for you.
It's also like basically my form of meditation, where at the end of a very long day, I'm like, I want to quiet my mind. I'll just build. I can't like build something from scratch because that will get my brain going. But if I just want to relax, then just following through the instructions is just like, and now I can just fall asleep after the end of that.
So you said your daughter's 6.
Mm-hmm.
Did you, like, I don't know what life was like for you before then versus now. Obviously, we went through COVID shortly after she would have been born too, because I've got a 6-year-old and we went through the same thing. Have you found a way to balance like work and life and kids and stuff, like to have some sort of balance there?
I always hover around the balance, but
Sure.
I mean, it's a thin line where I'm like, I want to spend as much time as I can, like working on my project, but when my daughter's around, then that's like 100% of my focus, and like that's like making sure that doing stuff with her after school and all that sort of stuff. And then sometimes I'm just got like, and then I get hardly any sleep because I wake up in the night like thinking about all of the stuff that I need to be doing and falling behind.
Right.
So it's always like trying to find the right level, and then just like getting really excited about adding a new mechanic and staying up too late. And then that's then I'm just having 4 coffees a day at work just to stay focused.
Oh, that's the best though. Hey, how much money do you save not eating because you're just having coffee all the time?
I mean,
It's great.
yeah, it doesn't help that there's like a giant snack bar at the office.
They treat you that well, hey?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's also getting progressively less healthy over time. More and more, just like,
Used to be bananas and apples. Now it's M&Ms and
yeah, there's like a
Smarties.
bunch of kid snacks. I'm like, I know these are great because I steal one from my daughter's lunchbox now.
That's right. How who's in charge of the snack bar?
I don't want to.
Yeah, you didn't call them out.
you just okay. Well, come on, because it could also be praise. Like it depends. Some people are like, you know what? I only live once, so this is a praise comment. You know,
it just means I need to remember to work out more after.
There's no treadmills or anything.
Yeah, I need a desk treadmill. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Oh man, I
have a standing desk, and it's almost always in the seated position. So those things don't go very long.
That's right. Now, you don't know this, but I'm telling you this. I am secretly in love with you, and so if things don't work out with your wife and things don't work out with my wife, I'm gonna be messaging support to try and get a hold of you. And the reason where this all started, Rory, is a long time ago. You wrote out a dev manifesto, the best dev manifesto that GGG has ever written, as a rap. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I can't tell you, I think I've even tried to wrap this on one of our episodes long ago. Like it's down to the T, man. Like you did it to everything and you nailed it, all GGG style. Now, you wouldn't be willing to do that for us, would you?
I wouldn't even remember it.
There's no way I remember that. So I'd have to read this for a bit. Tell you what, I'll look into it and I'll get back to you. I'll see what I can do, but I don't make any promises. But I mean,
it was really good. I had forgotten about it.
See, you're just the best. Like, that's amazing. That's so hilarious and fun and exciting. And like, dev manifestos are meant to like, don't kill us. We're making changes and they're good for you, but just chill out. And then it comes in the form of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Oh man, like it's good. Like we'll post this maybe in the show notes or something. I'm so in love with it that there was I made a Reddit post linking your original post, or I guess it was a reply. I think your Reddit post, it was actually a reply to somebody on Reddit or the actual devman. I forget what it was, but anyway, it was so good. So good. I think it's like 7 years old, but anyway, we'll put it in our show notes. So if you go to our website, for those listening, if you go to our website and just click on the episode, it'll be there. And it's the best. If you don't know Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you can stop listening. You are not welcome to listen to the rest of the episode. And with one exception, go Google it, the theme song. It's a fantastic theme song. And then Rory made it better.
Basically my childhood. So yeah.
Do you even remember what the reason or what your like thought process was for that one?
Oh man, I think that as I had written up the like post of like, here's the reason why we're making the changes, and like while doing that, this thought just entered my head, and I ran it past Bex at the time. And she's like, "Yeah, whatever, just do it, go for it." And like I wrote it up and just got like approval from everyone in the office, and we're like, "Yeah, sure, just post it. It's good."
That's hilarious.
So funny.
It is so good. I have it bookmarked. I never want to forget it. I think it's fantastic. Just how well you did it.
Yeah, it was 7 years ago. It was a development manifesto with changes to energy shield and life at the time. That
must be it. I mean, maybe this is the answer. The writing for my own game should just be in rap form, and that like really that's my calling.
Your spouse is so lucky. Who wouldn't want just constant rap all the time? Like your normal workday. I want to ask about what a normal workday is like for you, but I just kind of, because of this, I just kind of picture you walking around. No, you're not walking. You're kind of like doing a little jibe in your step, and you're like, now this is the story all about how Rory got, and then you just
make sure you do
start
different
going.
words. You're gonna get us flagged.
Right. But no, like I don't know, like you have a snack bar there, you have nonstop coffee. Bex is just shrugging her shoulders when she worked there, like, yeah, dude, whatever, go. Like, what's a normal work day life for you? It seems pretty good to work there.
There are some like stressful days, and there are some like real fun days. I mean, a lot of it comes down to like, at least for me, it's like, sometimes it's just, we've got to like come up with a bunch of skills for this class or something like that. And so I'm racking through my brain for like all the cool mechanics that we could possibly do. And then at some point I'll just have a meeting with like Jonathan and maybe Mark and just like go through it. And a good day is when a lot of them are like, yeah, this is great, let's do it. And a bad day is when it's like, nah, none of it's really like, I'm not feeling any of it. I'm like, oh no, that's just so like the rest of the day is like, okay, we've made all these ideas. Like programmers coming to me being like, how's this actually going to work? Like, what are we supposed to do when this specific mechanic here from this thing here interacts with this other mechanic from across the game and so on? And like, that's 90% of the work like 95% of the work is like making the idea interesting.
Actually work.
Actually, like, function. And like that is what most of my day is. It's like I try and do some passive tree work or something like that, and it's like, oh wait, no, someone came up to me and talked to me about a thing. Where I was at, what was this cluster doing? Okay, this cluster's just a weird shape now. I guess that's how it's going to be. Okay, so it's like, it's a lot of. I mean, it's nice. I mean, it's great that I just get to like chat with so many people, and it was like every time I'm talking to an animator and we're talking about how can we achieve this motion in this time with attack, and the animator will be like, check out this martial arts move from this thing here. And I'm like, that's perfect. Like, let's do that. And then they'll get up and like start doing it and maybe go off to the room to record themselves doing it so they can animate it.
Sure.
But then I'm just going to go and talk to a effects artist, and they're like, check out this sick explosion I made. I'm like, oh, that's a sick explosion. Yeah. Can you just add some more sparks there? Or like, we know it's better the first time. Yeah, stick with what you first had. Okay, cool. Collaboration. Then go to the programmers and like, yeah, I want you to do something real crazy. I'm sorry. But here's all these like specific mechanics to drop in. And oh yeah, and because of some unique or something like that, we've got to deal with all these like corner cases and possibilities. So yeah, just chatting with people and like coming up with solutions and weird ideas and things like that. And often like just about anyone will just have an idea of like, hey, but what if the skill also did this? And I'm like, hey, let me just go talk to Jonathan about that. Let's just get that approved. That sounds rad.
Sure. Yeah. Do you have to... You obviously know the game through and through to be able to have these conversations with these people. Otherwise, you're just going to like your job description would be called middleman, right? But when you... I mean, you have both sides of this. You have the creative aspect, and then you have the, I guess, confirming aspect of trying to figure out the details with the individual that's going to do the job, right? Is one kind of more exciting than the other? I mean, obviously you're interacting with people and you like the people that you work with, but is it a lot of... Some people would find it stressful and a lot of pressure, like come up with new skills or come up with a new mechanic. You do both, I assume, like you were talking about skills, but you were referencing mechanics here. Yeah, so there's a pressure for creativity, but then there's also the fun of creativity depending on who you are. And then, of course, troubleshooting it and figuring it out. Do you like both aspects? Is one way nicer than the other?
I mean, the coming up with ideas is way more fun. It sounds arrogant, but I've been doing it so long that it's just like actually ideas come pretty easily. It's just born with a brain that just comes up with weird ideas. But also the other part of my brain that can be like, no, stop thinking that idea, it's bad, before it gets further. So yeah, I've got the angel and devil on my shoulder just constantly being like, here's a great idea. I'm like, it's going to cause so many crashes. It's like terrible performance.
And then half the time it wins.
I wanted to ask you about some of the inspiration regarding stuff. I know you were saying you've been involved in almost 95% of the skills. I think Reeve was your first one, if I remember correctly. From what
correct. Well, you've done your research,
Yeah, I looked you up. I Googled. I don't remember where I heard it or saw it, but I thought I remembered you saying that Reeve was the first one that you worked on.
Yeah.
So I have, the first question I have actually is just why Reeve? What was it like? Was there anything special to Reeve? Do you care about Reeve anymore? Is that sort of...
the name is something that I've just used for multiple characters and stuff in games, and so it's just like sneaking a bit of myself in there. The original design for Reeve was like steals life, steals mana, steals charges off the target.
Just does everything.
and builds up stacks as it does it, and like one part of that stayed. So it was the start of me learning that, it's okay for skills to be a little simpler sometimes. But I mean, I totally would have snuck it in with all of those mechanics if I could get away with it. But it was like my very first design. So yeah. And yeah. It was just the theme was the starting point for that one of like stealing power from the enemies, basically.
Reeve's the first one you've done. You guys have so many freaking skills.
Yep.
I am curious at this point, like how do you guys keep coming up with new stuff? And then you're talking PoE too, and so we're talking all new sets of skills and everything. Like,
yeah.
How do you guys not hit like a wall at any point? Or
I mean, there's just so many different sources of inspiration, and like as long as you allow yourself to have like any starting point, like today we're starting with a theme on this thing here, or today we're starting with a mechanic, or like, I mean, oftentimes it's like, okay, we need some spear skills. Let me talk to the animator and just get him to do some like just swing a spear around. That'll give us some ideas. And it's like, okay, that's a cool motion. Okay, let's do a thing like that. Let's do a jump and shoot down in the air or something like that. Just because that like motion looks cool. What mechanics could it have? I mean, there's a lot of stuff left on the cutting room floor. I've got a whole like archery mechanic that I want to do, but like didn't appeal to anyone else. I'm like, I guess if I'm the only one who likes it,
those bastards.
It's like, I'll get it in one way or another one day. But
that's right.
Yeah. It's also like lots of people in the company have their own ideas as well, and will just like pitch stuff to me, and that's often. I feel bad a lot of time where it's like, that's cool, but it gives me a slightly better idea that might be unrecognizable. And I don't know whether it's just I like it and the other person's idea was better, but no, I've got this position, so let's go.
I got the title.
Afterwards, I might realize their idea was better, and maybe there'll be time to change it. But yeah.
Do you guys ever hit a wall? Like, is that ever where you are struggling for something, or do you just veer in a different direction if that comes up?
Probably only if it's like, we need to fill one specific slot for this character that it needs to be like single target. It needs to interact with these mechanics here. It needs to like be more supportable than the other skills are. It needs to be fire damage. You know, that when you get real specific like that, it's the only time. But even then, we often just eventually come up with something that it's just like, well, it just works. Or just like, let's try some crazy stuff and just maybe waste some programmer time, but maybe create something awesome from it.
How many people share your job title, or how many people are part of the kind of a skill approval process, or how many other Rorys are there that people come up to and be like, try and pitch their cool ideas to?
It's really just me, at least in terms of the skill stuff. Like Mark and Jonathan like will have their own pitches and stuff for these things, and they're making a lot of the calls on like, this is how the game should feel. This is how like the skill doesn't work. Like every week they are playing through the characters with the new skills we've made and so on, just to see how they're coming together, and that results in a lot of changes and stuff. So they're having the sort of final say on it all. But it's really like, there's two other designers that work with me on the skill stuff. Often like we're just each other's sounding boards, or they'll just have the more astute feedback. Viperesque is one you may be familiar with, who's the one that I work with most frequently, and he's also got a very analytical mind and very familiar with all the ways to break the game. So very useful to have like, on the front lines of the skill stuff. And Octavian as well is sort of basically our main like QA, but also just does a bunch of suggestions that become just additions or changes to the skill designs as well. So it's basically us three that are the main design team on that skill stuff.
I just wanted to quickly ask, of the skills that you have designed so far, do you have a favorite?
There's so many skills. It changes from time to time. Stuff like, I think Divine Ire might be my favorite purely just from like the feels and like what a great job the effects artist did to turn this thing into something really punchy. But there's also stuff like Blade Vortex and so on that are like, I like this design because it's completely different from other stuff available at the time and things like that. But I'm also very like, if people say like, I don't like that skill, and I'll just be like, yeah, it sucks. Yeah, no. And then someone says they love it. I'm like, no, I love it as well. I'm back on board.
That's fun to hear.
Tornado Shot is one of the ones that I have like a love-hate relationship, because it was so effective at being both single target and AoE when it was released. And every now and then when it's not nerfed recently, that it like defined the way that skills are used for attackers and things like that for a long time. And it's like the gold standard that other skills have to be able to compete with, which resulted in so many other overpowered skills, because Tornado Shot did reliable single target damage better or something like that.
And so that was referencing Tornado Shot, you were saying, right?
Yeah. So I've said at a talk at like New Zealand game dev conference that like Tornado Shot was my biggest mistake, and then some people who are now like staff working for the company were just like annoyed at me to being like, that's my favorite skill, and how dare you? It better be in Path of Exile too. Like, oh
yeah, right.
That's a perfect lead into a couple other things that I wanted to ask you about. Do you have a certain, I don't know, like algorithm in your brain for like how a skill needs to be strong, and like if it's strong single target, it can't be big on AoE, or like are there certain values that based on if it does damage over time or AoE that it can't be certain like this, or is it just all about how it feels based on the mechanic that it's being introduced with? Like what kind of rules do you have if you're willing to share them?
It's very different between PoE 1 and PoE 2, and I don't really work on PoE 1 at all these days. There's too much PoE 2 stuff to do. So it's PoE 1 is very much a like, we want to make sure this skill is going to be used and like used at late game as best we can. Whereas PoE 2 is like, this skill has to have a role while not taking away from the role of any other skills. It just gives it a whole different dynamic. It's far more nebulous than like the damage numbers have to be high or low, and more like it's got to make sure that it's like fits with the whole skill ecosystem that there is going on.
Makes sense. I'm a zombie player. That's no matter what state zombies are in, I'm an absolute zombie lover. I don't know what it is. I can't break away. Like I see all the skills. I see all the different ascendancies and classes, and I will theory craft 10 times more than I play the game. But then I even make the build and I'm like, oh, zombies. And then I always just come back to zombies. That's just, it ends up, that's the kind of player that I am. One of our long-term listeners, Theta, is exactly like that, but with Herald of Agony. And anytime I think of Theta, I think of Rory. And every time I think of Rory, I think of Theta. You're synonymous, because I think the first time I saw you was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And it was one of the first times I saw a GGG interview post-league launch that wasn't Chris or Jonathan. It was you. And you were on wraeclast, I think it was. And you were talking about, I don't remember the exact time Herald of Agony came into the game, though it was a while ago, but you were very proud of Herald of Agony at the time.
Yep.
And how it functioned and the interaction of Herald skills and skills that reserved mana that dealt offense. This was, of course, long before the mind changes the way they currently are. Does that specific skill hold a special place in your heart, or why was that special at that time? Do you remember?
I mean, at the time it was definitely special because there was nothing like doing something new and crazy with the Herald stuff. Just skills in general. Since then, I guess mostly feel regret because I just hear how people are using it to like not take any damage passives and not take any of the stuff and still do massive damage. I'm like, that doesn't fit with the like ecology of the mechanics of the game. But at the same time, it's still like cool. I've like, there's been multiple times in PoE 2 of like, let's get something like that. I mean, part of the benefit of the spirit system that we put in for PoE 2 is like, so we can have like minions be like, this is a big chunky minion that costs a lot of spirit, and it's effectively like Herald of Agony worthy in terms of you can build all around this thing or something like that. So I guess it's informed my design in future through like not making the same mistakes, but trying to aim for that feel that I was originally going for with Herald of Agony.
Sure. Now, I don't want to ask favors, but if this put Herald of Agony's strength back into your mind, could you please not nerf Herald of Agony for a couple of leagues so our friend Theta, who I referenced, doesn't murder me?
I say crush it.
No. I have kids.
It's
you can't
too
give me
strong.
2 leagues. Give me 2 leagues.
I don't like. I'm barely involved in PoE 1 at all these days, so I promise nothing. I'm very curious whether it will have a place in PoE 2. I guess we'll see.
Is that exciting for you? Like normally with our interviews, we don't normally like timestamp. We like the interviews like this to be, you listen to it anytime you want. But this is so exciting for us as fans with PoE 2 coming out as well, and I'm sure it is for you as well. Is it exciting for you when you're designing skills? Like, you had a huge impact, obviously you're a part of PoE from the ground up at the beginning, and now you're starting again with PoE 2, but you have such a different dichotomy of how skills are and such a new mentality and rule set for both. My assumption is it an exciting time to consider all these Path of Exile 1 skills?
It is cool.
And put them into... Sorry, my kids were laughing so loud. I thought they were crying and screaming for a second. But anyway, like, sorry to finish that. Sorry, Justin, you might have to edit that. But is like to add the skills from PoE 1 to PoE 2, is that kind of exciting process to like filter out stuff and fix things up?
It's really just a really difficult process because there's so much like emotional attachment to a lot of skills from PoE 1, and like people like I played the skill this way and I loved it. Like all throughout the company, like all these people, like, and when you like change a skill, like take some aspect of it away, it's just like it's a different skill now. It's not the same skill. Minor differences can make a significant difference to how you could use it and how people feel about it and stuff. Even just changing the effects up is like, that's not how I remember like Frostbolt looking, like a weird blob. And that like changes everyone's. It makes it like a painful process sometimes, like killing your darlings. Like we've got to like, it's the right thing to do for Path of Exile 2, but the skill will never like. I guess we've just got to go back and play PoE 1 so we can play the skill the way it was.
So is there thought that some of the skills then from PoE 1 will come into PoE 2, but they will just function completely different or differently? Maybe not completely different, but just
some are almost identical, but you still play them differently because of the skills surrounding them and like the way the combat works and so on. So it's amazing how small changes can make such a different impact on how you use the skills. And we've made a lot of small changes and a lot of big changes. It just changes the whole dynamic. I mean, my brain has been so ingrained for so long. Like, this is how Path of Exile 1, like every aspect of it works. It took a while to get out of that mindset of like, oh yeah, we can just change that thing because that we're not bound by the same rules. Like, it's okay that it's a one-handed weapon skill that just focuses on area damage or just single target or like more situational. The real like hard mindset to break, but then like works out great once you actually pull it off. Once you can,
right. So you're the lead game designer now, so you've got the title. You can do whatever you want. But going back, going back,
you're gonna make all of his coworkers hate him.
Were there? Do you remember, or were there any ideas or things that you tried to bring in, or ideas that you had, or skills or things that just didn't work or weren't brought in that might, whether they ever sit on the back burner and could come back, but they just never worked?
I think probably the reason I've survived so long is that I'm able to just be like, oh, that idea's dead, like bury it, gone from my mind, just wiped. I'm not emotionally attached to it anymore. Move on to the next idea. Maybe back in a like subliminal way and slide it in some other skill, but like a lot of the ideas is just like there'll be other ideas. It'll be fine.
Do you have like a notebook of past ideas that you just pull from if it didn't work and you can look at it later?
I've got a bunch of Google Docs of like, here's my suggestions for the skills for 3.12 or something like that. And sometimes I look back at those, I'm like, oh, that was what that skill used to be. Oh God. Or like, oh, that idea. Yeah, we've used that like multiple times in a completely different form. Like, hey, that person must have stolen my idea. No, that was just,
that's funny.
Just a simple skill idea. But yeah, there's so many discarded ideas that I've just like blocked from my memory because I'm like, it was not the right game for it. And sometimes I was like, yeah, that would be great. I know, but I clearly just been playing a lot of Warframe, so I was trying to make some effectively like shooter skills.
Right.
Then again, I did make the steel skills after playing a lot of Warframe, so you could tell that like guns were on the mind.
That's pretty sweet. Does adding controller support, like controller support's becoming even more, I mean, it's been relevant for a while in PoE 1, but now it's going to be much more relevant in PoE 2 as far as I understand it. Does it change how you approach skills, or are you find that there's going to be some skills that just have their differences? Like, skills on with controller support have their, what's it called? Alternate functionality, or however it's called, like totems, where totems layer desecrate.
The WASD controls for PoE 2 are like a significant change. It's a lot closer to how you play on controller, except with like full control over the target position as well. That's really a lot of the time I'm playing with the WASD controls now because it gives you that like the ability to move whichever direction you want while you're firing with less micro required. I believe that like dual mouse is going to be the optimal way to play, but because you get like control on target positioning and target direction, but that's probably a bit silly. So like there's a lot of stuff of like, now that skills can often be used while moving, that's caused us to go back to all of the stuff that we'd previously done, all the skills we made for PoE 2 already. Like, do we need to like change how this works with WSD movement, which will also affect controller in an equal way? The actual like alternate skill actions are not something that we have much on the PoE 2 skills. That's not really, like, there's some smart targeting stuff, but it's just a natural part of the skill now.
Is the WASD movement as functional and beneficial? Like I can definitely see that benefit when you're playing something ranged or spellcasting or your archer or something like that. But for melee, do you still feel like you're getting a big benefit out of the WASD with melee?
It does give you like absolute control over when you want to, like when you're moving forward to attack and when you're holding position.
Sure.
But we're still like going back through the melee skills that we made prior to WASD being implemented and thinking how we can improve the mobility.
Right.
Like early on in PoE 2 development, the advantage of melee was its mobility, but now ranged characters have much more of that. So bringing even more mobility to melee or other mechanics to melee is sort of the next big focus for improving the existing skills.
Cool.
Do you personally like the game Path of Exile 1, I guess, because we haven't played Path of Exile 2. Do you like the game on controller? Have you tried it?
I have tried it a bit, but I'm just so used to mouse and keyboard on PoE 1 that I can't get used to it. I did play Last Epoch with both controller and keyboard and mouse. It's like switching based on whichever control scheme is most useful in this situation. Mostly I just wanted to sit back and relax with some of the builds that were just burning through stuff.
Is that hot swappable thing going to be for PoE 2? Where, because you can't do it in PoE 1 right now. You have to pick one or the other.
I'm not actually sure. The fact that, you have to toggle between WSD and keyboard and mouse at the moment. I don't know. There's still improvements being made on the actual controller side of things.
Cool.
Sure. Is there anything in Path of Exile 1 that people can blame you for? Things that maybe you implemented that either people hate now or that were good, but now, they just haven't followed, I guess, the same balance process as many other items?
It's probably a long list. But the thing that I get blamed in the office the most for is the worm flask, because that causes the most, rework all these other mechanics because this one flask exists.
Really? And is that just for the sake of creating enemies?
Yep, creating enemies and the ability to, if you can fill up flasks quickly, then you can create, as many of these things, and so many mechanics that proc on hit or on kill or all that.
I think there was one just last league where they did a highlight on one where the guy was just using 2 of them.
I always get multiple messages every time a new worm build comes out. The designer's being check out this cool thing, and the programmer's being guess I gotta fix this thing.
That's
Are you responsible for the flask itself?
Yes, yeah. I've done a bunch of unique designs over time, but that's definitely my most notorious one. Yeah.
Can you think of any other one?
There's probably been too many to list, but I don't think any of them really change the way the game works ones. Well, mine, because a lot of the early stuff like shavs and so on was prior to me working on uniques, and that's the sort of stuff that's introduced the concept of low life and things like that. There'll be stuff that I've forgotten, maybe just blocked out those memories on purpose, but
yeah, right.
Sure.
Speaking of, I was just
sorry. Can I squeeze this one in? So you said you were responsible for shavs, but you're also the skill.
No, I wasn't responsible for shavs. Yeah. I was the one that discovered the concept of low life, but then made it amazing. So.
Okay. So was it weird for you when you approved petrified blood and low life changed to 50%? Did it feel like you were hurting something from the old days?
No, that was something that I'd wanted to change for a long time. I'd wanted to change low life to 50% as this might be something that you could actually reasonably reach in combat without needing to hit your flask immediately, and then petrified blood there too. Here's a way that you can... I was involved in working on Petrified Blood, along with the Trishi when he was working on the design for that stuff. And that was we want low life to be a core thing for strength characters or strength dex characters as a possibility there. Whereas previously it was a caster only thing. So that was a very intentional, low life has to be 50% for this to not be work with a tiny sliver of your life.
Tiny amount.
Yeah, watch that tiny little value down there.
Mm-hmm. You were talking about hiding stuff out of the back of your mind, but then also earlier you were mentioning that you you don't like married to the ideas like that don't go, if they don't go through or whatever. But what about the stuff that goes out and maybe it gets some sort of like, maybe the feedback's not the greatest. Sometimes the PoE community can be very roller coastery with regards to some of that stuff. Does that bother you, or do you just kind of just keep moving on to the next thing?
I mean, I've definitely like checked Reddit less often over time, just to keep my sanity. But
sure.
I mean, even like people in the office will be, if they've been playing this thing a lot and like, I just can't make it work, and they'll be passionate about it. Like, it's still like that feedback is there, and just having to compartmentalize it and like, well, let's just think about the solution. Just think about it like right now, we just need to like find out how to make it work, or just accept that like we're going to have to do a rework on it at some point in the future.
Does it hurt sometimes?
Yes. Yeah, it does for sure. Yeah, it's hard to avoid. I mean, it can even be like hurt when you yourself play the skill and be like, I should have just tested this some more, or like come up with some more ideas for this, or like scrapped the idea earlier and like come up with a different thing. Or even like someone else had it changed because they liked it. I'm like, I liked my previous version better, even if this one's more popular or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, I mean, it's the nature of working in a game with a lot of people and also a game with a lot of players. Like, you've got to accept that everyone wants to be involved in the development of the game. And
that's
right.
The
cool thing about it is that they can. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I couldn't be a little bit involved in the development of the game, even when I was in QA. So,
sure. Is it tough to, like, you obviously have to read all the comments, not like all that exist, of course, but when you're interested in getting that feedback and you go on Reddit or you go on the Path of Exile website and you're reading through comments, you obviously have to read the comment to know if it's an idiot or somebody that knows what they're talking about, they're disappointed or happy. Is it easy to kind of filter through what you would consider idiocy? Like, and I'm not, those are my words. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but like, not all feedback has value. You know what I mean? Is it easy to kind of filter through between what's actually valuable or not? Or is it kind of tough because sometimes there are those pointlessly negative comments?
It's always looking at it and be like, what is the reason this person made this comment in the first place? Sometimes it's like, have they made it like weird? There have been situations where it's like, this feedback doesn't make sense. Let me just check this person's build real quick, just to check that there's something weird going on here. But like, there's always a reason for them making that comment. Sometimes it's they had a bad day and
exactly.
died on a situation that they didn't feel like they should have. But as long as you think of it like this person has a motivation for saying this in the first place, let's think about that rather than my idea sucks.
So your in-house therapist must probably make the most money out of everybody, I would assume.
You mean the snack bar?
See, that's why you don't want to call them out. I hear you. That's right. Most valuable job at the company, snack bar. Speaking of, I guess some of the things that might drive either fans nuts or you nuts about the first game. How much of your Path of Exile 2 decision making is influenced by things that drive you nuts in Path of Exile 1?
There was definitely like prior to us starting work on PoE 2. For years, we always talked about PoE 2 as like, this is the thing that will solve all of our problems with that, every mistake we've made and can't undo from PoE 1. But the further along we got in development, like fairly early on, it was like, oh, we're making a completely different game. Those problems that we thought are problems aren't problems at all in any way. Like, they can't be a problem now. We've got a new host of problems that are like design problems that we need to solve that we have yet to like conceive of. And only once we've like actually made the entire build and the entire like level progression and stuff will all of them be fully apparent. So it stopped being a thing of like, we'll fix the problems and be like, we're making a different game that is like, can take really cool things that we like from PoE 1 and it'll always have its own little twist on it that we often won't see coming. Surprise twist.
Yeah.
If you're looking at PoE 2 now, is there something that you can actually like pinpoint as what you're most looking forward to?
Ooh, that is a good question.
It's Justin's question.
there's a lot of specific stuff of like, I can't wait to play this build through the game. Like, this seems real cool, and like I haven't played anything like it in an ARPG before. A lot of it is just looking forward to seeing everyone's hard work come together at the end of it. Because I mean, for so long it was like, make 3 months. Like, we're working on something for 3 months. We're working for something for another 3 months, and like maybe we'll get like a 6 month worth of work for an expansion or something like that. But it's sort of little compartmentalized chunks, and it's cool seeing like each of those individual game things in PoE 1. But in PoE 2, it's like all of this is like so much work over like with more people than ever before, and like every aspect of it, I'm like, oh, that is like the audio team did a great job on that sound effect, like, and it's this person here that worked on it, and that effect is super cool, and it's using some new tech that this person came up with, and then this person like made great use of it, and then the gameplay code is just doing weird stuff we've never done before, all sorts of things, and it's just like seeing all of that come together is just going to be an incredibly emotional thing when it's finally like in beta and people are playing it.
It's interesting. One of almost every fan from 2019, one of their favorite moments of ExileCon would probably be see Chris choking up, with the reaction after the trailer was shown. And just hearing you say something like that, I could just picture every individual that you work with and at the company that as soon as it's launched and people are freaking out in a positive way and loving it, that snack bar, I tell you, it's going to have some good stuff on it. It'll be empty soon. That's I'm looking forward to it. I picture everybody kind of doing that whole choke up. And so we're happy for you.
There was one of the trailers that was like one of the teasers for one of the character classes. It might have been the monk or the witch who was showing off. And the animator, Ed, who had worked on all of the character animations, like was seeing comments for the first time of like, these animations are amazing. And he'd never seen that in PoE 1 because the rigs are 1,000 years old and it's so hard to make like functional animations in PoE 1. But on PoE 2, he's seeing the stuff. He's like, people actually like pay attention to the animations and they like it.
That's awesome.
It's like a whole new experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
One thing that I love doing, and it's just because I play the game so much, is I don't realize how often I quote Path of Exile. Like, I'll get a cold, my voice is deep, and I'll be like, whoa, a weary travel. I'm trying to do a Zaro, right? Or somebody's leaving and I'm chatting with someone, toodles, you get Faustus going. Or, one of my kids comes up to me and I'll do like a whole boring Clarissa and I'll be like, oh, what is it? You know what I mean? Do you have any NPCs you quote throughout your workday?
The old Shadow like character selection dialogue of a simple job, I was told, is just like stuck in my head forever. And like some people like don't even recognize it anymore because it hasn't been in the game.
That's when they were in the ship, right? At the beginning when they were in the ship. Yeah.
But like I almost quote it to people and they're like, wait, half these people won't remember it because they weren't playing prior to that.
That's awesome.
But it always feels like it was a simple job whenever we're given one of these new skill shows.
That's pretty perfect. That's a really good one. Good for you.
You a hardcore solo self-found trade league player? What do you usually play?
I usually play the easiest, most accessible league that won't be a problem if my daughter interrupts me midway through. I've played hardcore and I've lost enough characters to like the cat that I'm not good.
Right? You sound like you have kind of like a jerk cat.
She's affectionate. She loves the keyboard very much. But yeah, oftentimes I'm like, I want to play the skill that I made a long time ago, or a skill that someone else had made. I'm like, I can actually play something that I don't feel like as attached to, or like a builder that transforms the skill. So I usually play stuff that I didn't directly work on, or like not recently, because I played that skill so much, and all I can remember is like every bad version of it when I'm playing it. So I usually play Trade League, usually playing with a build guide or something that I know I will succeed, so I can get to like do whatever my goal is. And then afterwards experiment and ruin the character and be like, okay, that's enough for this league. Let's come back next one.
What kind of goals do you have each of the? I mean, maybe it changes based on
take on whatever the latest in-game boss is, or like some content some league that I never made it to the final encounter for. Like focus on that and the Atlas tree and that sort of stuff.
Are you allowed to do that at work and say that you're testing something and figuring things out, or do you have to do that on your own time?
On the own time. But yeah, there's definitely like with PoE 2, there's been more like I really should go play this league, but like there's now so much stuff that I'm not immediately aware of everything because I haven't touched PoE once. So there's all these new things. I'm like, this is different. I'm not used to different. I'm used to it all being exactly the way I left it.
What about challenges? Do you care about challenges? Unlocking those MTX?
I've tried before and be like, no, this burns me out if I go for like.
Yeah, same for us.
I just need to like something achievable to work towards, and I make the build functional. And once the build is like, it's usually about the build. Once the build is like fully online, we just like do a tough boss, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was cool. Okay.
So I have a question we've talked to a couple other people about before too in the past is just the way the game's made. There's always been this grinding. You're grinding for gear essentially. It's there. You're building up your character's power. Do you have like a part of the game that you like being more in charge or capable of increasing that character power? Like, is it going to be skills? Is it going to be items? Is it going to be the tree? Is it going to be like, maybe it's a balance of them all, but so what do you sort of see as the best way of dealing with character power?
I always like to introduce the most power on something that changes how you play, which could be an ascendancy or it could be a skill or something, but something that will be like, well, now all of these options here are like out the window because it doesn't fit with this like mechanic that turns off a bunch of stuff or like forces you into this thing. And yeah, that can come from any mechanic. It could be a support gem or a single unique or something like that. That's the stuff that really appeals to me of like, as little effort as possible to create as much new gameplay as possible.
Well, you mentioned ascendancies, and I think that's probably the biggest thing Tyler and I are most excited about to find out about PoE 2 is when we get to start seeing some of the ascendancy trees, because that it's just such a huge part of your character that to see all new ones is going to be very exciting.
I mean, working on ascendancies way back in the day, the very first ascendancies was such a cool thing where it's like we have all this power to play with and like creating something. It's almost every one of those mechanics was intended to be that thing I just said about like this is a new way to approach existing mechanics and new ways to get power.
I think you guys have done a phenomenal job with ascendancies, because typically the idea of an ascendancy narrows down your theory crafting options, right? It funnels you into a specific avenue. And sure, like the game has had its history of unintentionally funneling people for certain things, but it's again those fixes that happen and then they're free again. And like the game, you guys have done a very good job at opening it up, despite the fact that there are ascendancies. And so, of course, doubling the ascendancies, there's that trust value, from my perspective anyway, that sure, the idea of ascendancies could funnel the game, but you guys have done such a great job of, I don't know, I guess having a theme for an ascendancy, but still keeping it general enough that the theory crafting options are still available with all the gems. That's like Justin said, that's the most exciting thing. If you guys didn't do one more video or one more interview, but the only thing we got was an ascendancy, this is the way it's going to be, our minds would be blown.
I can't wait to see the tree.
Right. So, but onto that, because there's so many different kinds of ascendancies you're going to have. What was it, like a million, give or take a few thousand? Do you prefer when you're playing, are you a slow paced player, fast paced? Like you were talking tornado shot, is that your style, or do you like just meandering along and smashing something and then moving along slowly?
Oh no, I definitely like going fast. Just fast enough not to die to some mechanic I didn't see coming.
To bleed.
Changes how fast that is sometimes.
Sure.
But no, I mean, the changes in how movement skills in PoE 2 work is like a big thing of like, is this gonna like kill the like momentum and the feel of it? But the mobility within the skills is now like the new way of getting that sort of speed and motion and stuff. And yeah, and I mentioned like Warframe as like that's the thing that appeals to me most is the like going fast and things like that. And it's the same thing I look for in PoE. I mean, last Epoch played a bunch of different builds in that, and all the ones that I stuck with were the ones that like they can zoom. Yeah, they can really zoom if they need to.
Are you more melee or range, or like what do you like to play in PoE?
Usually it's just whatever's interesting. Like anything that's got like some proper gameplay to the mechanics and tactics to it. Anything that's like press a button and the whole screen gets nuked. Like not now that doesn't appeal to me too much. I want to feel like I actually worked other than just following someone's build guide.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Sure.
They're doing the hard work of the like min-maxing the maths. I could do it, but I could also just spend that time playing the game faster.
So you don't like? Do you have a favorite? It sounds like you mix things up and you accommodate to what the new league mechanic is, and just maximizing that potential. Do you have a favorite skill despite that?
I think Divine Ire is probably my favorite skill to play, even though it's never really been effective on a like zoomy build that I've played. But just the feel of it, and like Ignite Divine Ire is something I enjoyed. That is kind of a wipe out the screen thing, but you had to aim, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, you did something.
Yeah. It usually is spellcasters just because that's where we've been able to do some crazy stuff. But I still love Earthquake, and I've played my share of Cyclone doing crazy things.
Yeah, Cyclone Chaos on Crit has always been fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been anything ever, item, mechanic, skill, or anything that's been pulled out of the game that you wish would come back? Or that you were sad to see go?
No, I've definitely blocked it from my memory.
Yeah, you're good at that.
It's probably like specific things I enjoyed in leagues that have since changed or been removed or something like that. But I mean, more and more the leagues like come back again in a different form. I'm like, actually, no, this is cooler in size chunks.
Do you have a league mechanic that's been your favorite?
It's probably Heist, and it's probably entirely because of the theme. And also the like number of times I've hit the jackpot of like early on in the league. Oh, I just got something that was worth 1 million Exalt or 1 million Divine, and like again, it usually shortens my gameplay. I'm like, I've got where I want now. I don't have anything more to do, but like I've had positive experiences with Heist just through sheer luck, and I just love the theme and the writing so much. And a good friend Nick did a lot of the writing on the characters, so it's just like I'm playing with Nick every time I go and visit the.
That's awesome.
It's really cool. Justin, did you delete some questions or something? We had 1,000 questions for you. And I was nervous we had like 1,000 too many, and we just got like a couple more left.
Pretty soon. We don't want to take up too much more of his time.
I want to take up all of his time, but we don't want to take up all of your time.
He's got to get to the snack bar.
At some point, someone's going to come into the room and be like,
hello.
We really need the answer.
That's
to this
fine.
question.
As long as they're asking something that we don't know, so it's fun and interesting. So that like PoE 2 questions.
Speak up.
Yeah, that's right. Speaking to the mic. Do you have a Path of Exile tattoo?
I do not. No, I don't have any tattoos. I have one I want. My mother will not approve, but I'll get there one day.
You have to wait until she passes to get it guilt free.
I'll get it one day once. Not just when she's like, maybe when her eyes start to go a little bit or something.
That's right. That's not a middle finger, Mom. That's a thumbs up.
No, my daughter just drew it on my arm. Yeah, don't worry about it. She just drew it in the morning.
Right. I just can't take it off right now. I don't want to make her sad.
Yeah.
All right. So if you were to get a Path of Exile tattoo, what would it be?
That is a good question. There are various mechanics and items and stuff that are pretty near and dear to me. Like Whispering Ice is like my baby in terms of like the unique, that it was like, this is just fully just, I got to do whatever I want and just went in straight as is. And like the artist that I was working with, like just came up with something cool right from the get go. But I don't think it's like pretty enough to be the tattoo that I want. It's not my vibe. I need something more geometric. I'm not sure. I will have to. I'll send you a picture of the tattoo on.
Yeah, you said that's right.
Sounds good. With the clip of you rapping.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, if my mother would disapprove of the tattoo, she'd definitely disapprove of a writhing jar tattoo. So it's not.
But right at your butt cheeks, obviously.
I mean, I don't think I have the pain tolerance for it, but the entire Atlas tree would be cool.
That's
you'd have to get it updated.
Yeah,
pretty often.
Yeah. Every time I change my build, I've got to like repath across my bat.
That's right. Every time you respec. Oh, that's really funny.
That's
good
awesome.
Answer. Good answer.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. We're obviously very excited for PoE 2 and beta and everything that you're doing. So yeah, thanks again for taking the time.
Yeah, no,
it's really been fun.
I don't think I spilled any juicy secrets that I wasn't supposed to spill, so I think we're all good.
I would have written it down as excitement, but don't tell him.
No, we didn't want to make you uncomfortable. We're not going in for that. So hopefully you didn't say anything you didn't want
I
to.
appreciate it because I would have spilt everything.
Hey, if you want to, you're welcome to. But that
I
wasn't
lose
the
my
purpose
job.
of this.
It's an option. Okay.
Yeah, no, that wasn't the goal.
Hey, she's a writer. She's got it.
Yeah.
You could always reapply as a different job as a writer, right? Underwriter.
Yeah, but thanks again. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it was great.
All right, let's wrap this up. Forever Exiled 237 with Rory from GGG. I'm Justin AK Tags.
And I'm Tyler Recker of Days.
Patrons will catch you in After Dark. Everybody else will see you next week in 238. If you're looking for more information, we got a website, foreverexiled.com, Twitter foreverexiled 2, Discord's very fun. Come in there, Patreon, that we support the podcast. You'll find them down below. Peace.
Out.
Bye.